Hi everyone, this is GosuDad, and welcome to the post-game analysis of Game 1 in the best of 3 channel show match between the GosuDad channel and the QuailGang channel. Q Phoenix versus Fontaine, Terran versus Zerg on the map Terminus. Hey everyone, this is GosuDad, and welcome to my very first post-game analysis of a show match game. So this is the 4-player map Terminus, and before we get too far, let me pause this game real quick and point you guys to the QuailGang YouTube channel, and go to that channel and check out the livecast version of this particular game. I'll be having a link in the YouTube video description, maybe an annotation, and of course a link in my blog post about this video. Check out that video. It is an edited video for those of you looking out for the kid-friendly flag. QuailGang did edit that video to make sure that it is GosuDad audience-friendly. So check out that video, and after you've watched that, come back to this video where we take a more in-depth analysis at this game. So slight pause for that, and you're back, and we will get into this analysis popping off the tab. So first off, wanted to take a brief kind of detour as we look at the beginning of this game, talking about some of the build-up coming into it. So there's a couple of different topics that I want to talk about as we walk through this game, and the first one being talking about pre-game preparation. So this game was a very special instance where I knew in advance that I was going to be playing this matchup, or rather specifically that I was going to be playing this game. And at the time I was preparing for Terran versus Terran, playing against Tony of the QuailGang casting trio. So QuailGang is made up of 3 different players. Tony is Bronze League, and Aaron is Silver League, and oh my goodness, the other guy, I cannot remember his name. He is Gold League. And so the original thought, since I was a Bronze League player at the time, dropped down from Silver, that I would be playing against QuailGang Tony in a Terran versus Terran, and Tony is a Bronze player. And so I had prepared in advance to be playing against a Bronze level Terran. And so my thought was to do an early expand, and you know, kind of thinking along the lines of the meta of a Bronze League Terran, meaning most often Bronze League Terrans like to play defensive. They like to build their nice little wall off in the front, stay within their base, and move out when they have a defensive force to their natural. Now, of course, Sahara, there's no natural here. We'll get into that later. But so right before we started to play, we were meeting online, getting ready to play this show match. I found out that Tony was intimidated by my GosuDadness and did not want to play me, and so we decided to switch to play for me to play against Aaron, who is the Silver League player, and he is apparently well versed in multiple races, and so we went for this Terran versus Zerg. Now that changes up my expectations for this game considerably, since as you know, at the time I was basically upper Bronze League, and having a lot of hard time with playing against Silver League and higher players, especially Zerg players. So I had a lot of nervousness coming into this game. On top of that, as mentioned in their live cast, we had a lot of trouble getting the game set up. And during that time, I'm just sitting there getting more and more nervous about this game. You know, oh no, I'm going to be playing against a Silver League Zerg player, going to be seeing lots of Banelings and Mutalisks, and it's just going to be terrible. And so I'm all nervous coming into this game, and you know, there's some debate as to whether I continue to go with this early expansion strategy. Now, you know, from the previous cast that I did in my show match with Raids, which, you know, as mentioned in those casts, was just basically a rematch of a rematch of a match, that I was experimenting with these early expansion builds, and you know, had kind of decided from the math that this was a highly advantageous thing to do. Now the difference though is that I'm now playing against Zerg. You know, a mirror matchup is one thing, Terran versus Terran, but in Zerg versus Terran, the Zerg player, by expanding to this extra expansion, is ahead of a single base Terran player. And so coming out with this early expansion on one hand is puts me at the advantage. If I can expand and he doesn't realize it, and he's still on 2-base Zerg, 2-base Terran versus 2-base Zerg is in the Terran's favor. But the disadvantage for Terran, of course, is very dependent on the Zerg's ability to hit the Terran's different bases. So in most cases, I would expect the natural expansion to be right outside my main, you know, short distance from this nice ramp down to over here. And this kind of brings us to my next point. So the first point being that pre-game preparation. You know, we're trying to prepare for the metagame in, you know, the Silver League, Bronze League metagame, you know, which is different than the Pro League, the metagame that the pros have to deal with. But then the second point, and I guess the second point of that would be gaming tilt. You know, I'm coming into the game very nervous, very anxious, and the question is, you know, do I stick with my plan? Do I do something completely different? And the third point being map preparation. Now, don't get too concerned that this game is speeding up ahead of us. Given that this is a post-game analysis, we can just go back and forth. I can pop up this control tab and go back and forth. So the second point here is that I was expecting this natural expansion to be right here, and having to make do with that not being the case. You know, where do I put my defensive units? Where do I put up my wall? Etc. Because as you can see here, the second expansion is quite far from my main. And then likewise, the other second expansion base over here, this is still quite far from my main as well. I mean, this is a really long route all the way around this, let's see if I can use the arrow keys here, all the way around this corner, all the way down here to my, what could be my natural expansion here. And as you can see on the Zerg player's side, Fontaine, Aaron, he did exactly that. He chose to have his second expansion be here, which, you know, as we said before, is a pretty long distance away. I'm actually surprised he didn't go down to take this one, since the only entrance into this expansion is here. So this is a choke point right here for those expansions. And as we see, the game is wrapping up to a close. But so that's kind of my my last point there is. You know, it's very important for you to have played the map previously and understand what are the nuances of this. For in this case, there's no easy natural expansion, and as we can see here with the wall off, there's some interesting little geography things here with the shape of the map. And as you can see, I was not used to dealing with this kind of an entrance ramp here, and you know, both my attempts to try to place my buildings in a blocking off position did not work out whatsoever. So let's just go back to the beginning of this game, because we spent a lot of time talking about that pre-game stuff, and walk through this game at the at a faster speed. It's probably okay. So once again, you know, post-game analysis, we can go back and forth over this a couple of times. This was a very short game, but I think that's one of the advantages we have in going through from a replay. We can pause and rewind and speed up, etc. So here we are looking at a typical Terran versus Zerg, Bronze League, Silver League level type of thing. And we can see the Zerg player, I don't know, did he go for that gas trick? I'm not sure that he did. So sending out his Overlord, I don't know if I can flip this over to see. There's a way you can do it so you can see which way they're routed. You can see the waypoints for them, and apparently I do not have that set up. But so Fontaine's sending out his first Overlord. Now if you look at the direction of this Overlord, he's checking to see if, I get my mouse in a better position here, checking to see if my base is over in this direction. So he's checking out his starting locations, which is good. Again, this is a 4-player map. So now you can tell that from the loading screen on the game, whether it's a 2-player or 4-player map. Even if you haven't played the map before, you can see that from the loading screen. And right away he can zip around the map and try to get a feel for what's going on. So as we talked about before, the natural expansion is not right next to your main. It's either far down here in the corner down here, which I think is a very natural expansion, or it's over here right next to the base, nestled in the back door essentially of your main. So he's got his second Overlord, likely trying to scout out the 12 o'clock position. Now he did have this drone cycle through. Okay, there you can see a waypoint set for him, and he actually, I think, had already waypointed in to try to go into this base, but because I already had a wall of barracks here, his drone actually stopped up here and came back. I suppose we could rewind and see that in person, but that is not important. So you can see here that even though I was going still for that early command center, which you saw later on in the game, I did go for a wall off here. Now some of that is because as we use the insert and delete keys to rotate the map, you can see that this entrance ramp is much larger than the typical Blizzard map entrance ramp. That's why I had to use this second barracks here. I'm not sure you can wall this off with the typical 2 supply depots and 1 barracks. The other thing that I'm demonstrating here is the insert and delete keys. These are very important keys when you're laying out buildings, especially if you're trying to do some kind of wall off. So in this case, from this perspective, we can see that this wall off is pretty good. But from this perspective, it's, you know, kind of iffy, and that came into play as you saw later when I tried to do a wall off. So we can see the Zerg player going for an early expand. Again, I didn't see a lot of this going on in Bronze League. Did see a lot of this from Silver League players, and Aaron is demonstrating that very well. Now, I didn't quite get the timing of when he started that out. It looks like it's maybe about that 14 food point. A lot of times people like to expand to their hatchery at the 14 supply mark, which is right after you build, if you do the extractor trick, and then right after you build your overlord, you build 3 drones. That'll put you at 14. So it is at the 4-minute mark. He's got these 2 set up, and I'm starting to see some pressure coming here. They highlighted that a lot in the live cast. So these 3 Marines are just my attempt to try to put just a wee bit of pressure back on Fontaine, to try to keep him, encourage him, please stay back, please stay away from me, because I'm actually doing an early expand, which is super aggressive and super greedy on my part. Now those 3 Marines, ironically enough, we're going to put some pressure back here. Now I had a scouting SCV, there he is. And at this point, you know, it's actually kind of, I'll slow down the speed a little bit. You know, having these Marines come in, trying to put on some pressure, having the SCV attack the hatchery, I mean, that's just silly. If anything, I should have had him go over and try to build a bunker if that's what I really wanted to do. And the placement of that bunker, of course, is important. You're trying to place it in a certain location to have a lower amount of surface area. So right here, this is actually a bad place to put the bunker. Zerglings and workers can get all the way around it, and this SCV is fairly exposed. And I think he ends up getting killed here by these Zerglings, which is a shame. And we can just cancel that bunker right there. So at this point, if we just pause and look at the Army Killed tab, see, that's the Army tab. Units Killed tab. At this point, I've killed 6 different units. Now, I'm not sure if they're counting overlords, but at this point, over here, we can look at the units lost, and we can see the amount of resources lost. So he's lost 256 resources so far. So at this point, I am actually doing very well as far as trading. So at this point, these 3 Marines can go home and call it a good day. Now, we do know that I will continue to keep these Marines around as we hit the unpause button and try to take out this Overlord, and they do succeed. So that at that point, I'm doing fairly well. Back at the base here, I finished my expansion here, building the 2nd command center. Now at this point, I get even more greedy. I go ahead and turn it into an orbital while it's here in the base, and putting down production structures, trying to use up that those minerals. But of course, Fontaine, being distracted by all this, his minerals was quite high, and actually killing those 2 overlords was really good. It supply blocked him, which gives me a short moment of time where he's going to be building overlords. And that is one of the tricks about playing Zerg, is that although you have lots of these little larva things that come out from your 2 hatcheries, those are the only way that you can produce units or produce the overlords, which increase your supply. So that, by forcing him to make overlords instead of making drones or making Zerglings, that was a big advantage. So here we go. You can see my Marines trying to set up some kind of defense. Now at this point, I had no map control. Because I had lost those Marines, I had no idea that he was sending in a big force of Zerglings. Now, I kind of expected that he would do the minimum amount of Zerglings to clean up those Marines and stop and turn around and start making drones. But instead, he went on the counterattack, which was very good on his part, because he actually ended up catching me off guard. I mean, this is like, you know, meta on the meta on the meta, right? You know, here I am trying to pressure him into giving myself more time to get the 2nd base set up, and then he turns around and basically calls me on the bluff, right? And you know, I don't know how much of this he was thinking through on his side. Perhaps he can do a post-game analysis kind of more from his perspective. Now, one of the things that was interesting about the live cast is both casters thought that these 5 Marines were going to do fairly well against this batch of Zerglings. Now, don't forget that a Marine is about, well, is the equivalent mineral cost as 2 Zerglings. So we have 10 Marines here, and we have 12 Zerglings. So at this point, the Zerglings do have an advantage. 2 of them are just slightly damaged, but don't forget Zerglings, all the Zerg units heal over time. So at this point, the Zerglings do have an advantage as far as the mineral cost wise. And at this point, the other thing to note is that these Marines are actually spread out. So this is actually a very This is a disadvantageous. This is not a good position for these Marines to be in, because they have a very they're very exposed. The best position for these Marines to be in when encountering a group of Zerglings is to be bunched up in a ball, or to be bunched up in a ball against a wall. The reason is that these Zerglings are all melee units, so the more exposed surface area that these Marines have, the worse. The other thing is that the Marines are ranged units, so they do have the ability to kite these Zerglings, that is, to fire, back up, and fire and back up. And you see the pros do it all the time, but of course, down in here, Silver Bronze League, you're not going to see a lot of that, unless you're watching Rays, who apparently knows how to kite units. So let's watch these Zerglings come into the attack. We'll pull up the hit points, and you can see here that the Zerglings are able to spread out and get a very good surface area in all these Marines, especially near the end. Now, as we do a quick pause, we can see how many Zerglings survived. He only lost 3 Zerglings and killed off 5 Marines. So that's 75 minerals for 250 minerals. That's a really good trade-off for him. Now, coming up to the base, there's nobody left here except I had these 2 Marines, and that was just a misclick. I think these 2 are rallied up to the front. As soon as I saw trouble up here, I should have rallied them inside so that these 2 Marines can attack the Zerglings while they're trying to break in. The other thing I should have done is I should have gone ahead and pulled off workers to try to repair the supply depot to be ready for when that happens. But of course, again, you know, Bronze League, all this is happening very quickly. These 2 Marines are going to die. Now, one thing I did do that was smart is I did not lower the supply depot to try to save these 2 Marines. So letting the game... Oh, actually, before we get into that, let's take a quick look at Fontaine's production. So at this point, he is researching the metabolic boost to speed up his Zerglings, and once that's researched, the Marines will not be able to kite the Zerglings whatsoever, because the Zerglings are going to be too fast. The other thing is he'd already started building 2 queens. Now, he did have a lot of minerals banked up from when I attacked him earlier, so this is all just a fine reaction to that. Now, checking out if this was in the later versions of StarCraft, it actually shows you the number of larvae that are present here. Let me just see if it... Oh, no, wait. There's a way, units tab? Yes, units tab shows the larvae available. So he has 3 larvae available, but of course, if we check out his vision, we can see that he is focused on this attack. So we're going to see some faltering in the macro from both of these players, which is fine. So coming in here, these 2 Marines are going to get cleaned up pretty quickly. And at this point, I even floated this orbital command. Now, I'm not sure how quickly I realized I should wall this off, but once again, we'll just be demonstrating the insert and delete keys. Now, what's funny is at the time I played this game, I knew that there were keys to let you rotate like this, but I had no idea what they were. And boy, if I would have had these keys, I would have been able to see it. Now, one thing that I do have set when I play the game, which may be helpful for you, is I have the building grid set up so that you can see the little square grid that these buildings are placed on. So I could tell that I had a good... I had a good kind of flush setting up here, but I did not know that there was just like a little wide open highway here. I mean, I think this is at least 1 unit wide, maybe 2. So now at this point, one of the things, and I guess let's bring this up as another point, is that the game of StarCraft is in some sense kind of a gentleman's game. So the idea is that you're playing to the point where one person realizes that they've passed this magical threshold, where they know that they're going to lose, or they know that coming back from this disadvantageous position, okay, I need to come up with a word for that, is possible. And one of the things about playing down in the lower leagues, Silver and Bronze League, is that a lot of the players... either the players don't know the game well enough to know when that point is, so they don't know when to give up, right? They don't know, they've reached the point of no return, they need to give up. Just go ahead and give up. There's no way you can pull out of this. But on the other hand, the other thing that I've noticed when I've been playing is that because I know that I'm in Silver or Bronze League, I know that mistakes can happen. Even when a player has an advantage, the longer that the game goes, the better player will prevail. That's kind of the common wisdom, is that the longer the game goes, the more skilled player will win. Now, in Silver and Bronze League, it's kind of iffy as to who's more skilled, right? So the longer the game goes, the more opportunities that someone has to make a mistake. Excuse me. And players that are that perceive themselves to be in an advantageous position can make mistakes. Now, in this case, the game is so early, he's going to break through this wall. He's not going to be making any mistakes. At this point, I think I'm just kind of in a state of shock about what just happened here, especially with these Zerglings wrapping around this command center. As you know from some of my other ladder games, and that very first game I played against Rays, I pride myself on not freaking out. Wow, that was actually really cool. Let us rewind that for a second there. I'm just going to watch this building cancel here and watch the particles fly. This is StarCraft 2 running, wow, on ultimate settings. So that was pretty cool. A nice little distortion there as the Zerglings come in. So at this point, a handful of Zerglings in the base, can be pretty bad, but I'm still trying to keep up with the macro. I'm building SCVs, building Marines. I could be building 2 SCVs at a time. I have a lot of minerals. So at this point, there is a possibility of trying to recover. This barracks trying to get over there just in time, and the live cast made such a good dramatic point of this. And doesn't that look like that's a complete wall off? That sure does look like it is. But as you know from the live cast, oh, it is not. That's terrible, isn't it? So that's, again, knowledge of your map. So then these Zerglings coming in, and at this point I'm past that point. I should be just GGing, and at this point I'm just, I think, still in a state of shock about how things have gone. I was hoping that this game would be closer, especially with all of my mental preparation, but of course, like I said before, I was very prepared to be playing a fairly relaxed casual game against a Bronze League Terran player. Instead, found myself with my the challenge that I had on the ladder, which was playing against a Silver League Zerg player. So at this point, anything he does back this base really doesn't matter. He is, basically building a bunch of Zerglings to come in for the kill. But he's done it. At this point, even if he backs off, he's ahead. He has map control, etc. He's killed so many units, it just doesn't matter. But yeah, I just thought that was a very interesting game. And that's the thing that I really like about StarCraft 2 is that at every level of gameplay, there's interesting things to talk through. There's interesting things that you can learn, even from these Silver Bronze League matches that you're seeing here. There is a metagame down here in the Silver Bronze League level, and there's just a lot of things to learn about it and understand. So, all right, well, this is GosuDad signing off for this post-game analysis, and next we'll be heading into Game 2 of this Best of 3 show match, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Oh, and before I go, great big shout out once again to QuailGang for putting this show match together and organizing everybody to do the live cast and all that. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate all of their shout outs to me on their channel and on their video. And check out their channel at youtube.com/QuailGang. I think it's YouTube, so I should probably check that out first. But yeah, definitely check out the live cast of this and of Game 2. And we will see you guys in the post-analysis of the next game. See you guys later. Oh, and I forgot already. Oh, this is so embarrassing. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/GosuDad, as you see on the right-hand side. And, of course, my blog at GosuDad.blogspot.com. And please follow me on Twitter at GosuDad. I have 1 follower, and that guy is totally awesome. And you know who you are. We'll talk to you later. See you, bye.